The S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100. And when we talk about what's happening, we're going to get to the nitty gritty. There was big news on the day. We had our PPI report, and it was unlike pretty much most of the other ones that we get. CPI traditionally leads some of this data, then PPI kind of follows along, and then PCE is a little bit of a wild card. Now, PPI told us a little bit. We're gonna get right into it, right? We're just jumping in. I'm not even gonna reel you in, right? I'm just jumping right in. Okay. So you had PPI rising up. Okay. On guard for a flare up, right? Some people are caught off guard by this. I'm one of those people. Now, the area of where we saw PPI rise and inflation start to spike was primarily in the services sector. And what does that mean? We saw services go up, basically mean the consumer had more money to spend. And this is a major red flag. And I'm going to go into exactly why. Okay. In yesterday's video, if you followed along, the main thing that I said was it's hard for me to get bearish if we don't have supporting fundamental data, right? I've been saying that for 6-7 months. Until then, we have to follow technicals, and we basically have to kind of plug our ears and ignore some of the concerns that a lot of people are saying. I know you're saying, well, Tyler, don't you think it's ignorant to ignore fundamentals or ignore possibility of things? I do. I think you should listen, but I don't think a lot of traders here are mature enough to process that information, right? That's why if you read the comments, since we ran up over like 600 points on, ES and the S&P 500, everyone was saying the top is in. The top was in for 7 months apparently, but until it wasn't, right? So when we look at some of this action, let's just go over what's happening. We're going to go into CPI and PPI and what's happening with inflation. But we had some things I need to talk about, and I think this is kind of where things get really ugly. So obviously here on Nasdaq, you were really looking for a hold up here, right? That's where you wanted to hold. You didn't. You've been in a downtrend since then, lower lows, lower highs. This is a bearish short-term structure. Where things get really ugly is if you break below 14.8 roughly. Then I think you're really in trouble. Then you really step into saying you made a lower low on the daily time frame, okay? And that's where things get ugly there. Now, ES is a little bit more tricky, okay? Because ES, as we look here, this is your level, 44.95. Okay, that was your previous high, and this is kind of what's kept me on edge because we've seen Nasdaq drop, and we've seen Nasdaq drop faster than other sectors before. We've seen rotations, and so I'm just on guard because I don't want to get stuck into a trade or lose money rushing into anything, right? It's always what I kind of preach here. And when we look at this, you're ending the week bad. It's just, I'm going to call it like it is. This is your previous 52-week high that you had that was established. You've been printing lower highs and lower lows through this now. And it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker every time we push up. Now, the caveat to that, if you're bullish or trying to be bullish, is on a breakout day like today, your volume was minimal, 61 million. I think you needed to see more. I honestly, as we sit in this range, I am just dying. Please get me out of this range. Please, dear God, give me a break to the downside. Give me some volume. Give me some follow through so I can trade that, right? But doing this is I can only trade quick scalps, getting in and out, getting in and out. And the scalps have been good. Don't get me wrong. But I feel more comfortable having a clear trend and a direction that, the evidence is there. And so this is something you didn't want to see. And I know someone's like, well, your volume was good yesterday, but your action yesterday was terrible too, right? And so you go to something like the weekly chart, and when you look at the weekly chart, pretty, lackluster candle. We tried to bounce. We're just sitting here. It's, either way, we didn't get direction. Okay. Now, what I will say is this whole area from basically 44.95 down to around, 43.80 is a demand zone. It's big. It's a weekly demand zone. It's huge, right? So it's unlikely that you just drop straight through it. But that being said, I still want to see momentum, especially with bad data like this. Before we go through the breakdown, I ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. It helps out tons. Also, the newsletter, the link is down below. You just go to our website. You're going to go over to home, go to newsletter. You can sign up. This is absolutely free. Last week's newsletter, we gave you the whole rundown, key levels, everything we were watching, Nasdaq, the Russell, the Dow. We also went to our favorite stocks, Tesla. Now we look at Tesla and what exactly happened. This is, last week we come in and we start this week, we get going. We push down under that level, 252, down into demand, back into 252, reject, reject, reject. 3 chances, people, you could have traded this over and over and over based on the newsletter, right? Free game, it's all there for you. Apple, what are we looking at here? The big level here is 177. There's really not too much else to talk about. You continue to break down and gave you the levels here to watch. You could have traded this down into 177 as well, but that was all there. But Tesla was the big one. Everyone likes trading Tesla. But I want to discuss what's happening with PPI and CPI and inflation in general. The reason why this is concerning to me, I'm going to break it down. If you have questions, you know what to do. Comment down below. We'll try to answer. Okay. So the main concern going into inflation this past week was oil and energy. Now, we didn't think we were going to get a major impact from oil and energy because they had just started to rise and bottomed out basically 35 days ago. And we know it takes time for oil to hit the supply chain and hit cost across the board and impact inflation, right? There's like a month, little bit of a down period, kind of lagging effect, right? Now, so going into this, it was like, if oil doesn't bring us down, then you look good. Like you should beat. And CPI did. CPI did better than expected. But then PPI comes out and it kind of highlights a major issue with the Fed's plan. And I'm not here to say the Fed's doing terrible or anything like that. They took too long. We've already gone over all that. But the Fed has continued to say a soft landing. And this narrative has pushed the economy up because they're like, we can achieve a soft landing. We can have low unemployment. Everything can work out perfect. And I've had my causes of concern, but I've put them on the back burner because, again, like I said, if we pay attention to just only, counterintuitive things that's happening in the market, and you don't just play the trend on what's happening, you're going to lose money. Point blank period. Okay. Point in case, October through November or December last year. Tough period to trade. Up and down. It is what it is. January things were a lot better. Okay. So we look, and the area of the market that showed the signs of inflation and made PPI do worse than expected was consumers. It was me and you. Because what's happening right now is unemployment is still low. Wages are still slightly growing. There's growth in the economy. There hasn't really been the slowdown. Now, granted, 2022 for stocks was really bad. Like if we look at companies, they slowed down tremendously. But as a nation, you didn't necessarily feel a recession. You might say, oh, I felt inflation, but you didn't feel a recession. It is what it is. You didn't. Now, maybe if you're a wealthy individual, you have money, and you have money in the market, you're like, I felt it, Tyler. I felt the pullback. Then yeah, you did. But from a greater sense of the matter, you didn't. We did not experience it. Okay, it wasn't like '04. It wasn't like previous times. Didn't really experience it. And so what's happening now with this narrative, and this is where things can get ugly, is if energy starts to spike again, which we talked about all last year, beginning of this year. If energy starts to spike and inflation starts to surge, the Fed is in a bad position. Okay? The Fed can't make people lose their jobs. They can't do that. Okay? It's up to companies to do that. Right? That'd be crazy. They can't do that. But now we're in this area of rates are very high. And rates, let me tell you, they are close to peaking. No matter what, even if inflation starts to spike again, they can only raise them so much more. But they're going to stay there. And when they start to stay there, with the side of inflation doing what it's doing, it's going to get even uglier. And the only other area where the Fed can attack this is attacking credit cards and raising rates there with the help of banks. And then also tightening restrictions on banks as well, which they're already doing. And so this is where things could get ugly. So it's very important over the next 45 days that things start to pick up. Number one. Now, you also need to know, we really have no more data, but next week we'll probably have Fed members talking, so pay close attention to that. But with what's happening with data, you don't have PCE till I think the 31st, the end of this month of August, and you have Jackson Hole not this coming week, but the week after. And Jackson Hole, if you remember last year, I recommend just go look at the date, just look up Jackson Hole, Fed Jackson Hole 2022. Look at the time, look at the date, and then look at what happened to the market and the economy. It got decimated. It was literally like Thor's hammer clunked me on top of the head. My head would have been gone, right? Just rolled down the hill, right? That's what happened. Okay. So you're in a very, very pivotal moment. I would say right now, I think you need to be more cautious than ever. From a scalping perspective, I'm also thinking downside has the most logical sense right now based on what happened with PPI. You will have Fed members coming out this week, and I think that their narrative is all you need to be listening to. You won't have Powell speak, like you won't have him speak till Jackson Hole. Powell 2023 has been a hermit crab. Isn't it funny that we haven't heard from him? He's like, if I keep my mouth pretty quiet, I'll let the market do what it needs to do. Because again, for him, this is good, right? The market's going up, inflation was kind of getting handled, but now like there's a resurgence, okay? And for him, it's like, okay, well, if there's a resurgence and we start to dip again, probably don't go as low as he did before, which is probably true. I don't think we're going to hit all-time lows. I don't think that, okay? But there's definitely a cause for concern in the short term because what do we know? You know, housing has been good, but it's probably going to get worse. Rent prices will probably continue to drop, but with what's happening with OPEC and oil, there's been a complete disconnection from the market. And what I mean by that is if we look at crude, we look at where we're at and how you're performing, this is kind of your level, right? This is pretty big, okay? You've bottomed out and you've just slingshotted to the upside. Now, you were getting bounces, and you were getting those bounces when the Nasdaq would move, when ES would move up, right? And it was like a worse bounce. You would move less on crude than you would on equities, for instance. Best way to put it. But now you're going little Uzi Vert to the moon since July started. And there's literally no signs of slowing down. If oil gets, and it's already there, I think you're just retesting previous highs here. There's a high possibility you push into 90. Once you start getting back into 90, $100 a barrel, there's a major, major cause of concern. You also saw what Biden said about SPR reserves. I don't want to go into this whole bear thesis and things like that because it's just too soon now. And honestly, we got to see more data. I got to keep saying that. But I think there's less of a catalyst to move up because in the next week, I don't think the Fed members say anything positive. I think there's nothing positive that comes out of the Fed's mouth. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think every Fed member is going to be like, could be a cause for concern because it's specifically consumers, right? It's unemployment and consumers. And this is what Biden or Powell didn't want to happen. We talked about it. We're like, Powell's plan's cool. It's a great plan. I love it. My stocks are going up. I'm making a lot of money on calls. But if oil starts to go back up, Powell was not going to sleep for a few nights. Okay, so that's my tangent there. Hope that makes sense. If you have questions, again, comment down below. We'll have all we can answer them. So names I'm liking. You're like, Tyler, just, hey, shut up. Give me the trades, right? Hey, you're welcome. One, Meta. Meta is one of my favorite plays here. Actually, no, I'm going to go over Meta real quick. So Meta, what I've been watching is getting below 304. I've been mentioning this a lot. You're kind of getting a bear flag on the entire day. You can kind of see that establishing there. And you're bear flagging underneath 304. You had your entry opportunity. I mentioned that in the live this morning as well. And you're kind of pushing back down. So target one's 298, but I think you're going back to 289, 290. If you remember when we traded Meta to the upside, we loved this. It was all over Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, I guess you don't like free plays and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, so 289, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 20 touches here. You flipped it 1, 2, 3, and then you shot up to like 320, 330. Okay. So target here is like 289 on the minimal side. Number 2, Tesla. It's going to be in the newsletter. So I don't really need to cover it, but you do have a gap down at 235 and target's like 232 roughly. That's really all you need. It'll be in the newsletter. Promise you. The next one up, Apple. So Apple, I'm not super interested in trading it. I'm not. You can trade this if you want. When you get below 177, it's going to get ugly. But what you need to be watching here is 177 because what I've been watching is ES in particular, and ES did not jump off a cliff today. But when I look at the action that's kind of taking place here, I believe ES will start to get hit harder once Apple loses this 177 level because Apple obviously one of the biggest holdings in the S&P 500. Nothing else really to know there. Microsoft. These were some of all my favorite, names to grab for the upside. You're going to notice a trend here. Why? You're losing your support. What do we look for? We look for us to break and retest. I know the strategy is actually insane. So if we look here, again, similar as Meta, bear flag, bear flag, bear flag, bear. That is not, that is gross. So if we look there, ideal range is like 316.5. You have another gap there as well. But honestly, I'm looking down towards 313 also. This could get really ugly also, like really quick. So again, if Microsoft and Apple start to lose this, it's going to get bad. Now, we've already seen like the biggest plays that we had in Discord this week. I'm going to tell you right now. Shout out to J Ream, this guy. He like goes to sleep every night. He has his 480 graphics card Nvidia just sitting in his hand, and he just rubs it and just goes to sleep. I'm telling you, he does this every night. He takes it out of his computer, he puts it in bed with him, he just goes to sleep. He says, "Speak to me, tell me about your stock." This is all he does. Like he only trades like 4 names, but this guy, let me tell you, this guy's been going absolutely crazy. Nvidia. I mean, I'm just like, dude, he's a whisperer. He got the huge bagger we posted on Twitter this week, and then the 419 retest. He literally said last night, he said, look, before market close yesterday, 419 and hold, it's going to test 410, period. Period. Right? What happened? This morning, you broke down, getting the retest on Nvidia right now. What happened? You literally went to Narnia. You died. Got baptized by fire. Yeah. So what you're seeing here, SOXX, I want to talk about this. Another big thing Jay's been talking about. You have this kind of ascending channel kind of formed out here, right? You broke down, looking bad. Very similar to Apple, but it's performing worse. SOXX was down almost 2.5% on the day. That's terrible. AVGO, massively hurt. If you do remember, the Nasdaq got rebalanced. AVGO was got put up like another percent as like the holdings in Nasdaq. Important to understand this. AVGO, literally from like 900 down to 830 in a matter of like 5 days. Disgusting, right? So those are all things to be looking at. And as you're getting hit on semiconductors, that's why NQ is getting hits way harder, obviously, than ES. The biggest names in ES haven't started to fall. And you've had energy and some of these Dow names really holding up. So these are all things you need to be considering and watching. The only thing that's like blowing my mind right now, I mean, this is blowing a gasket up in Tyler's head right now. VIX. This is bizarre. Granted, once they added 0DT contracts on SPX, it kind of ruined the thing. But, I mean, what is going on? DXY, I'm like, sellers, where are you at? I mean, are you waiting for some Fed members to talk? Like, this is problematic. Like, sellers, we got to step in eventually, okay? So you're literally you're just tanking on DXY. Like, I mean, VIX. Like, why are you not going up? DXY, you get a solid base established here, and you're pushing back up. If you zoom out, what we're looking at here, you get a descending triangle, false breakout, trapped shorts, pushed right back up. You still got that base above previous support. Really awesome. You're pushing up. DXY could break out, but I'm not a huge DXY trader, so I would not touch DXY. Going into yields, another great day here on yields. I mean, you're just roaring back. Inversion back at almost 98%, 30-year, 10-year. This is the telling part, though. Okay, you can see that, and I am the guy that's always saying this. Like, why are we not pushing down? Why is it not getting followed through? Why is the volume not there? Those are all important. I agree, but when I look at yields and I see them pointing this type of direction, it's definitely scary. The 5-year, the 2 years almost back at 5%, and it looks like it wants to break out. Don't shoot the messenger. So those are the areas I'm looking at. Those are the stocks I'm liking. If you have questions, comment down below. Oh, my last one. Oh my God, how did I miss it? Right? It's ugly. Don't attack me. Don't attack me. Don't do it. Don't do it. Stop. Just don't do it. Don't attack me. But look, for me, you're the only 10 I see. Netflix is setting up for something tragic. Okay. So in my opinion, got a head and shoulders, got a little alfalfa head going on here. I will recognize it's not the prettiest, but you got shoulder, very clear head, and then the neckline is very clear. Very, very clear neckline. Okay. What are you looking to do here? For me, I'm waiting for the break, just like when I went long on it. Remember when we made all the money on Netflix and it went from 410 to like 450 in like a day? Remember? It was awesome. It was cool. Super duper, right? Same thing. You want to see a close below the neckline, which is also the 200-day weekly moving average. Oh my gosh. If you break and hold below this, it's going to be, I mean, it's white claws for everyone. Everyone, everyone gets white claws, okay? We're just chugging them nonstop. That thing's going to be gorgeous. I mean, you have room down to like 380. I mean, yeah, 380, like roughly, like that's probably target one. I mean, it's gonna be so quick. So again, there's a lot of good names to the downside. Look, everyone's like, Tyler, you're a perma bull. Guys, I'm perma try to make money. That's Tyler's middle name. Tyler perma try to make money Wilson. That's the name, right? I changed it legally. Okay. It is what it is. Don't attack me. Actually, attack me. I like it. Kind of gets the ego going. So again, the point of this channel is to make money in the market. Okay. If I would listen to all the haters, all the shills, because y'all pay my bills, guess what? I'd have been a brokey. I wouldn't have made money this whole upside for 6 months, 7 months. But I didn't. Option drops. Hey, you come to option drops. You come to option drops to get the check. That's why you come here. I'll see you tomorrow, boys. No, I will not. I will not. I'll see you Monday.